In this short video, we want to introduce all activities after product approval topics. We start with overview of all post-market and quality management activities after product approval in China with applicable legislative. Then we go through all typical post-market activities, vigilance, inspection by authority, post-market surveillance report and analysis of product design change. We will generalize all activities including quality management and following as post-market activities. From the view of active role, the post-market activities can categorize to reactive and active activities. The product launch during the final stage of approval, register typical code in Chinese database, Chinese PSUR and annual quality management report as well as product design analysis during the whole life cycle belong to active post-market activities. The reactive post-market activities are vigilance and inspection by Chinese authorities whereby you can T plan early and has to react to make measure. The best way to understand post-market activities in China is to know all regulations behind. There are specific guidances in China focusing on each post-market topic. Sometimes there are templates at guidance as for adverse event, recall reporting and Chinese periodic safety update report. In China, the PSUR is translated to Periodic Risk Evaluation Report, abbreviated to PRER. The annual self-examination report is equivalent to annual quality management report. The product launch can be differently complex according to the size of company. The main party is marketing, product management, project management, sales and Chinese distributor. The goal of product launch is to place ordered next new generation product immediately to the Chinese distributor and user. One of the important steps internally is Chinese labeling. On the date when getting the Chinese certification, you can finalize Chinese instruction for use, system label with new certification number and make all special Chinese info in own quality, production, and customer relationship management tool to produce and order approved Chinese model or variant. Often you need train the Chinese distributor to release the final sales which is quite difficult to estimate during deficiency reply and review stage at authority site. The Chinese approved medical device may have another set of components and symbols to consider than in home country. The Chinese product launch should be managed in a customer-tailored project. On the Chinese site, more and more international and Chinese codes need to be registered at Chinese database. Newly, it is quite important to upload issuance code of subject medical device which then can be chosen by user at hospital at Chinese tender. Now we are in the reactive action during the Chinese life cycle of approved medical device. The complaints are usually coming directly from Chinese user or distributor. They have to be lived under firm-related procedure. When the serious grade is harming enough matching serious adverse event, legal manufacturers have to report the events to Chinese authority. This is the active part in term of vigilance. The passive vigilance plays major part in the reality. It means that all stakeholders in supply chain, especially Chinese user, may register any event unfortunately in the basket of adverse event database. In this case, overseas manufacturer needs support of Chinese agent, Chinese distributor and Chinese user at hospital. In the table you can see for adverse event and recall in China there are for each three categories to differentiate. The most critical time is register deadline when to just register what happens and report deadline when to complete events analysis. Then it follows the review of adverse event or recall report by authority. In China, there is no certification of quality management system for overseas manufacturers. The Chinese authority tries to follow up European model of post-market surveillance to strengthen the monitoring after product approval. So far there are two post-market reports. The first one issued is Periodic Risk Evaluation Report, equivalent to European Periodic Safety Update Report with Chinese requirements. It applies to all classes of medical device or IVD in the first 5 years after approval, which should be submitted annually. Another international model of post-market report is Annual Quality Management Report. It applies to one report from one Chinese agent for each overseas manufacturer. In this report, the Chinese authority wants to get Chinese and international QM, key performance indicator as complaints, CAPA, internal audit, quality or production change, non-conforming devices, all kinds of national inspections and penalties, sale number and central procurement in China. Let us limit the reactive inspection by Chinese authority to overseas manufacturers, namely product inspection. The Chinese authority has very clever policy of risk-based inspection. So every year a list of products and applicable testing standards are given as potential inspection subject in China. In this case, a sampling of overseas manufacturer will be taken to test in a certified lab in China. As mentioned, there is no quality system certification cycle for overseas manufacturers in China as in Europe. It is very similar to 21 Quality System Regulation, CFR, Part 820 at FDA. The inspection could be random and often occurs remotely. If overseas manufacturer had a Chinese production site as Chinese manufacturer, a Chinese Good Manufacture Practice, GMP, has to be fulfilled and certified, which is like ISO 13485. The last active post-market activities is challenging, analysis of product design change upon Chinese regulation. There are only simple items in regulation briefly mentioned which trigger new change registration: design, raw materials, production processes, scope of application, methods of use and beyond. In the fact, the controlling product change is far beyond these items as critical info on Chinese certificate, Chinese product technical requirement.